Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the newest comic duo, Davis, a dabbler in many disciplines with a voice that can soothe and persuade. Mike, a fanatical specialist with a mouth like a bullhorn, fueled by strong opinions and a compulsion to share them, with microphones and comics in hand. They are Jacks of Trades.
Hello everyone and welcome to Jacks of Trades. I'm Mike.
And I'm Davis.
On Jacks of Trades, we read, discuss, and review trade paperbacks and graphic novels from major and indie comic publishers. We're not experts by any means. We just love hanging out and talking about comics.
Now, we are going to do a complete breakdown of this comic. So if you have not read it before, find another episode to listen to, or read the comic if you want to, or listen if you haven't read it yet. You just want to, get the feel of what this wonderful thing is, because we are only doing the first trade of this series.
Davis, since this is our inaugural episode, give us your origin story. Who are you? What do you do? What's your level of experience with comics? And then, to top it off, give me your favorite character and why.
I was born in the swamps of Louisiana, miles from the Mississippi.
We don't have time for this.
Okay. Well, started reading comics when I was a little kid, had a couple of them, loved Spider-Man throughout my entire childhood, had a costume for a while, went from regular Spider-Man to putting on a lab coat and some slacks, being Dr. Spider-Man.
A while? You mean now? Not a while. You mean now?
Well, I had to get rid of the costume. We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
So did that, then I put on a pair of slacks and a blazer and a briefcase and a tie, and I was Spider-Man, Ace Attorney. Then I put on a...
When was he an attorney?
Oh, he wasn't, but I made him an attorney.
Okay.
It's utilizing the costume more often. And then I was hipster Spider-Man one year for Halloween. I walked around saying I was focusing on my photography. I had some jorts on. I had a what they called the swaggo rag, or the little the scarf thingy with the pattern on.
Oh, that thin scarf that's not actually warm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That
the whole purpose of a scarf.
Yeah, to keep yourself warm. But I had to get rid of the costume because I was drinking heavily, so I had to cut the costume to make a pee hole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's that. But aside from that, like I said, been a fan majority of my life. Didn't really start reading comics until I was in college. Found out about some musicians that were writing comics and decided to delve in from there. Since then, it's been a wonderful on and off journey of just learning things and looking at wonderful art and fun stories. And going back, yeah, dude, Spider-Man, favorite character of all time. Old Petey Parks.
Yeah, he's a good one. I follow his current ongoing. I gotta appreciate the man.
Oh yeah, there's Resurrection and People and whatnot. Well, Mike, you've heard so much about me. What about you? Take us through the origins of Mike.
Okay, well, there was a congealed mess on the floor, and then...
We're not talking about Matrix congealed mess, are we?
Much worse.
Okay.
Anyway, I always knew about comics. I read a couple here and there, but I never followed on a monthly basis at a young age. And then as I got older, I delved into other nerd things. I was big into music for a long time. At a certain point, I read a lot of trades, and I picked up here and there when they caught my interest. And I decided one day to ask you about monthlies. You were reading monthlies, and I was not up to date issue by issue, so I wanted to kind of get back in that and enjoy the concept of being immersed in a story on a basis where I have to wait for the next one to come out, because I can binge things on Netflix, I can go find old movies on YouTube. I can't really do that today, and that was a cool medium to do it with. So since then, that hobby's gotten way out of hand. Lots of issues, lots of trades, but it facilitated this podcast. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, a little Spider-Man there. But my favorite character is going to be the Hulk. I love the tortured soul of him. I love the reluctant hero. I love the question mark, because he's not quite a hero. He causes a lot of damage too. So I really like that. And I like that when he's the Hulk, he's basically, under the stories that I like, a giant, dumb, strong baby. And that's really fun to read.
So we actually have in the studio with us right now, acting as a tech guru, producer, executive comptroller, handler, In-Depth Media's own Gregory Allen Percival Tilton.
Not any of those names are correct except for...
You got Gregory and Tilton. The middle ones are
I
very
think
wrong.
Alan Percival is a very solid middle name. That's the middle name I would give you, sir.
I will change them legally because of your show.
Damn straight. Damn straight.
Greg's going to occasionally come on and talk about some comics. He's got a lot of film experience, so just his worldview of storytelling and world building is really interesting. So we're going to have him on a few times, but for the most part, he's going to be our behind-the-scenes kind of guy. It's going to be me and Davis's show with some rotating guests. Now, speaking of guests today, our first guest is going to be Donny Songy. He's a mutual friend of both me and Davis, and I thought that he'd be great on this podcast. So why don't you introduce yourself, Donny? Give us your origin story. Who are you? What do you do? What's your experience level? And if you have a favorite character, let us know.
My name is Donny, and I'm a school counselor. And in conjunction to that, I'm also a marriage and family therapist. I'm currently working on my PhD. I was in a band. I was in a marching band. Then I was in a metal band with one of the hosts for a while. And I'm also a fraternity brother with the other host, Davis. So, I'm close with both of these guys. I would say that one thing I can pretty much offer is, I guess, sort of my, expertise in terms of understanding relationships within my psychology background, especially with today's issue, which we'll get to in a second. But, I'd say what my favorite comic book character, God, I don't know. It would be a good pick. I mean, I know this is such a simplistic pick, but I'd say Iron Man, just at how damaged that he really is. I know it's such a basic pick, but just...
Well, I mean, you could say that you like Iron Man because of the armor, but that's not why you pick him. You pick him because of the...
Well, the man, not the Iron Man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. The alcoholism, the hyper over sexualization.
Oh, dude! If you delve into some of the earlier arcs from the 80s, he's like raging alcoholic. At one point in time, one of his suits falls in love with him and tries to make love with him.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that sort of behavior more than anything else. Is a guy who's so damaged and just. But in the same sense, machines won't even have sex with him. That's a pretty huge thing. So yeah, that's the guy.
Okay, well, welcome, Donny. Today we are going to be talking about Saga Volume 1. This is the first trade of Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples' Saga.
Yes, and if you couldn't tell, it's Volume 1, so it is, in fact, a saga. There's more than one.
God.
I hate you so much.
Davis.
And one of the reasons why we brought Donny over here for this whole talking about this book is the two main characters are a couple. The two protagonists are a couple. And not only are they a couple, they got a little offspring.
You mean one of them that's breastfeeding?
Yes, on the cover there's definitely...
I make a note. I want to open with the cover because you have these two characters in this very Sid and Nancy, Bonnie and Clyde style badass couple together. There's a gun, there's a sword, there's leather jackets, there's belt buckles.
There's an excessive amount of belts.
Yeah.
And breastfeeding.
Yeah, exactly. We then have the main female character breastfeeding her baby on the cover, which really kind of grabbed me initially. I know breastfeeding in public is a big hot button issue right now, but I thought it was a cool thing. You don't see it very often.
Here at Jacks of Trades, we fully support breastfeeding.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense biologically.
Yeah. It's disgusting. I'm joking. Yeah, it's a very good thing, and also for the majority of comics that I've seen, I think it was mentioned in the previous or some other kind of discussions that we've had with regards to this over sexualization of characters in comics. I mean, just on the other side, no, this is part of nutrition. It's just part of development,
Right.
It definitely removes that hypersexualization and it kind of changes it and makes it more about the life-giving.
Yeah,
right. It's really cool. And that's what I liked about it is you have these two cool-looking characters balanced with the breastfeeding, so it takes what could have been a very thug-feeling image and turns it into a genuine, strong family. They're not thugs. They're strong for the family. They're strong for the baby. And it's a really cool way to introduce yourself to these characters before you even open the book.
It sets the tone really quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we open the book, and the first page is quite possibly the best opening page I have ever read in anything. In comics, it's the best opening scene in television, movies, whatever. This page grabbed me immediately.
I agree. It is just wonderful because it's a beautiful whole page of just the silhouette of the female protagonist's face. And she's saying, am I shitting? It feels like I'm shitting.
The detail in her face, there's anger, there's a little bit of pain, there's some curiosity.
Right.
There's so much emotion feeling in the face and the detail. And then just the immediate line. One of the first few words is shitting.
Literally,
no.
The third word of dialogue is shitting.
Not even, it's monologue at that point. It's just her.
We've gotten far from Lois Lane, is what I'm trying to
Yes,
say.
we have leaps and bounds beyond Lois Lane just being the damsel in distress.
Many tall buildings from Lois Lane.
Mm-hmm. But you eventually find out she is
We're shitting on top.
She is in the middle of giving birth at this point in time. We are mid-labor as this comic opens up. And a unique thing about this is it's all done in a reflective style. The narrator is the child that is getting birthed in the first couple of panels of the first issue.
Yeah, while you have the dialogue in the boxes, there's also non-boxed writing that is the baby that is being birthed right now.
It's narrative.
Who's narrating from the future.
Yes.
So at the very least, from the get-go, you know she's not dead.
Right.
At some point in the future.
Yes.
But we don't know exactly how we're going to get there. So that's kind of cool, as having her reflect back on her existence.
It's for this journey, not this destination that we have right now.
So we quickly see that these two are giving birth in not a hospital. They are in a body shop.
Yes.
Now, we're not quite sure why at this point, but clearly some things have gone wrong in their existence at their body shop. It definitely hits you immediately with the gore of birth. There's the mild use of profanity.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little bit of nudity from the mother because that is the act of birth.
Yes.
And it humanizes these two aliens. The main characters, one has wings, one has horns.
Yes.
But it immediately removes that entire point, and now they're just humans from the get-go.
Humans in the sense that they are people. They're regular.
They're relatable.
People.
There's something we can relate with.
Mine is, I wish I had wings at times. Not so much goat horns. Or ram horns, technically.
You would be a wing, I'd be a horn.
Okay.
That's what it would be.
I can handle that.
Donnie can be a robot.
I can handle that. Donnie can definitely be a robot.
My story is yet to be told yet. But I would say that, in terms of them trying to normalize these two for the crazy world that they've been brought into, that was such a easy way to do it. Is what better way to normalize two people from dealing with a birthing process,
right?
And going into labor in an auto shop. That's pretty.
It's like either giving birth or taking a poop. It's the equalizer.
Yeah,
everyone happens. Everybody poops.
Shitting? No, it's labor.
Yeah, it really brings you right there. But we're quickly to find out that they're fugitives.
Yes.
And we get this immediate introduction to the war that they're involved in. There is a group of soldiers with wings of varying types. So it's not... Our main character has kind of bug-looking wings.
Yeah, like butterfly.
Yeah.
Well, not like opulent butterfly, but like grasshopper-looking wings.
I'm thinking more like dragonfly. Like dragonfly wings is what comes to me. But then we see these soldiers. Some have bat wings, some have bird wings, some have bug wings. It just seems like there's a certain race that just has some form of wing that they grow.
And then also with the horn people, there's a guy who has got like deer antlers. One that has like just little tiny pointy goat antlers.
Yeah, there's some goat, ibex, all kinds of different forms.
Ibex, really?
Yeah.
That's the long one, the jumpy thing, right? That's not
a
gazelle.
The long twirly ones.
Oh yeah, the corkscrews.
Yeah.
Bottle opener. Gotcha.
Yeah. So we're introduced to this war because we have a group of winged soldiers led by what appears to be a robot with a television for a face.
Yes, Daft Punk, but not Daft Punk.
Yeah, which is
colonial
Daft
Punk.
I do like his garb. He's got the shoulder tassels.
Yes.
He's got. There should be an ascot. I don't know if there is. I don't think there is.
It's always an appropriate time to have
There's room for an ascot.
There's always room for an ascot and a fancy brooch.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell Fiona and Brian that they should definitely have put an ascot on this guy. But we're going to let it slide.
Hopefully they'll hear us.
They have gotten the information out of the body shop owner, and they are trying to kill these two. We're not sure why or what for. But as they're trying to do this, all of a sudden, we have this group of horned soldiers show up, and this big battle in the body shop ensues. Everybody dies, except, thankfully, our protagonists and their brand new baby. upon the death of these people, they find this body shop owner who hands them a map and says, this is what I bought by selling you out. So we know he wasn't just selling them out to sell them out. There was a point to all this. Now, we're not quite sure exactly what it is. But we get this immediate introduction, the graphic nature of birth, right straight into war. So these lives are very, very complicated at the moment.
Well, it's a wonderful dichotomy of having birth, which is life, immediately followed up by death. Extreme death. We're talking at least 6 people die at this point in time. And it's really fun to show how you'll look at it and the winged people have guns, in which you see on the cover Alana, the main female protagonist, she uses a gun as a weapon. Whereas Marco, the horned man, and his whole species, swords.
Swords and magic, yeah.
Swords and magic, basically.
Yes.
Swords and magic. So the main storyline, plotline A, is this wonderful couple and their child. We have an expansive world after.
There's the language, though. I mean, I don't know if it continues or at least ends with the first part of this, which is about. Oh yeah, I love that part too. Being considered as an idea. I was an idea, which I think that maybe that's towards a little bit.
Yeah, Donnie's referring to Hazel, who is this baby. She is retroactively saying that every child starts out as an idea. If one person has an idea, it can easily die and not be nurtured. But when you have 2 people involved, this idea can be nurtured and grown into something tangible, which is 2 people having the idea to have a child and then making that child and then nurturing through the development process and then birthing and then nurturing beyond that point.
Yeah, it just fascinates me, of it being brought up to the bare bones of these 2 people, these 2 strangers, is just, coming into this comic together as, we're going to have kids, Well, we'll start with this as an idea, and then it kind of, becoming more complex as the story goes on. But I think there's some other stuff that kind of comes into play.
We don't really see that much in comics. Introduce the main characters as parents, immediately becoming parents.
I mean, even the Fantastic Four, they have kids now, but they didn't start off
they
as
didn't start
parents.
that
They were a
way.
couple.
Some jacked, confused person that's like, what do I do with this strength? It's a pretty awesome way to start.
Stretchy.
And also because of the fact that, we're starting this comic with 2 people that are, if anything, very vulnerable.
Oh,
yeah,
completely.
absolutely.
Because all they're worried about is their kid just getting out alive. It's not about saving the world or anything like that.
Yeah,
it's
no.
about, just please, can I get my kid to kindergarten? Are you serious?
Step 1, birth the child. Step 2, make sure it doesn't die.
Yeah, which is about how my parents, really went about that process. So.
Okay, so from this point, we are introduced to the world that we live in. There is a main planet named Landfall, which is where the wings are from, and there's a moon that is where the horns are from. And they have settled themselves into a war. And this war went on for a while, but they both deemed that it was too damaging to their worlds to leave it there. So they have now outsourced their war across the galaxy, which is why we get the robot is leading the
Colonial Daft Punk.
Yeah, they have allies, they have slaves, they have different factions on each side that are fighting this war for them, while their home worlds are relatively peaceful. So we're kind of introduced to maybe Alana and Marco. Yeah. You're kind of
like World War One.
Yeah. Maybe Alana and Marco probably shouldn't be hanging out together if both of their races have been at war forever.
Right.
So that might be why they're fugitives. We're going to find out shortly. From this point, we're introduced to some of the other players, and we get introduced to a man named Prince Robot IV, and we're introduced to him as
He's just doggy style, just having another fun time with another fun robot person.
It is his wife. He is monogamous, so
true.
we'll give him that.
This isn't, random coital shenanigans.
But
Did they state that it was his wife?
Yes,
Yes,
it is his wife.
It's his wife.
Spoiler.
I would just
spoiler
saw
alert.
someone else with a helmet.
They totally have a baby.
Yeah, no, all the robots are just gray humanoids looking figures with televisions or monitors for heads, basically.
What was the thing with the horn? I think it was one of the first pages when introduced. With
Right
the
here?
horn. Yeah.
This is what I wanted to bring up, is he's having sex with his wife, which should be a beautiful and sexy and exciting moment for him, and he has a PTSD flashback to a battlefield scene of a bloody, broken horn laying on the ground. And then immediately shuts off all sex drive.
Right.
So we're quickly introduced to the fact that as a veteran, he is dealing with some things. Even as a robot, he's still dealing with human issues. It's another way to take these non-human characters and ground them in a reality we can understand.
Well, I think it's great because he is a prince. He is technically royalty.
Yeah.
But he still has had to be on the front lines.
Yes.
Has had to deal with the same thing that the everyday soldier has had to deal with in this cosmic war happening right now.
And the expectations that really come along with it, too.
Exactly, exactly. So now we're introduced to the politics of the situation. We have a winged gentleman who is telling Prince Robot IV that he has been ordered by the High Command of the Wings, and therefore his father, the king, that he is going to hunt down and kill the two parents, Marco and Alana, because they are pregnant. And that is going to be a problem for the morale of the war. When you can have two people from the opposing side find love for each other and have a baby, it really makes people that are kind of on the fence about fighting, gives them a little bit more steam. So even though he is a prince, even though he's already done his time in war is still reached out to him and is going to force him to get involved.
Yes.
Really Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, there's
that type of theme, and I'm not trying to reference. But
no, but it's true. That's how the book was initially sold to me, was Romeo and Juliet in space.
I was about to say, the way you sold it to me was, Davis, it's Romeo and Juliet with Star Wars.
Yeah,
you really can't do much better than this.
Meets Game of Thrones meets Venture Brothers.
Then we move forward and we get Alana and Marco are trying to get to the destination on this map, which we found out is the rocket ship forest.
I wish rocket ships grew in tree form. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Minus the whole, wood getting out of the atmosphere, burning up special space wood, space people. But you also find out that this magic that they have to do, Marco, Horned Man, they have magic.
Yeah.
He's literally holding a blue flame to light the way while they're going through this kind of just sewer area to work through the end of the whole thing.
But what's really cool about this scene, I like, is that they're going to a rocket ship forest. Marco's holding fire, and they are having a very standard couples argument that ends in them coming to a consensus and moving forward with a plan, which is that's how families work.
Yes.
And so no matter how weird the circumstances are, they're still a family. They're
Yes.
still doing those normal things that a family do.
They decide to homeschool her for right now. Whatever definition of home they have.
More politics. We're introduced to a man named The Will. He is...
Love this guy.
Really?
I love him. Yes. First of all, not only is this guy named The Will... All right, so The Will, bounty hunter guy.
Yeah.
Pretty much merc, holds no alliances.
He looks like Jason Statham, which definitely helps.
Yeah, it does.
Statham. And he has this giant, hairless, blue cat.
It's like a hairless Persian from Pokemon.
Yes, it is like a giant hairless Persian from Pokemon with a huge sun collar by the name of Lying Cat. And basically the cat can tell whenever someone is lying.
Yes.
It's as blunt as the name is.
Very useful skill for a bounty hunter to have when he needs to get information out of people, to have a built-in lie detector with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus,
there's teeth and claws.
yes.
From a quote from Brandon Schaub, he's a cutie pie, bros. He's an absolute just cutie pie. But he also... I love the way that he develops throughout this story.
Which
we're gonna shut up. Right now.
Love you. I think you and I both agree why we love the Will,
and it makes me so angry about not having friends named Will that are better than this guy.
I know.
We're looking at you, Will. But anyway, we're introduced to the politics on his side, which is the Horns are going to hire him to kill Alana and Marco and save the baby.
Because the television people are pretty much being hired by the Wings.
Yeah, so both sides have now set out mercenaries, killers, assassins to take out these two that are just trying to escape the war and have their baby. And that's all they care about.
Right.
As we get to the end of this, one of my favorite lines in this issue, they give this whole story to him, and he doesn't even care. The Will doesn't care about the situation, about the politics, whatever, but he does care about the credit card they're going to give him.
Okay.
And then at the end of it, the last thought he has is, what kind of assholes bring a child into this world?
Let's think on that for a little bit.
Yeah, let's delve into that.
I love how that's his thought process. Not this big giant war, not whatever, just that any two people would decide to make a child at this time with how messed up the galaxy is.
Exactly.
I want to dive into this because it's one of the big themes that I really thought about a lot in reading this entire comic was that how do we sculpt like the future? How do we sculpt, you know, what it's going to look like? I mean, we have these ideas, you know, from the cartoon, like the Jetsons, talking about how amazing everything's going to be so efficient, and everything's going to be nice and easy, and a lot of our issues are going to be resolved, you know. Like, and honestly, from what I remember, like, there were no minorities.
I was about to say,
that's number one, which is kind of awkward and terrible and
but
racist.
white folks.
And that's pretty terrible.
That's a weird future.
I honestly love with this comic is that it takes in things with such, it was very real of a type of approach into the future, because we talk about the fact there's a lot of advancements in the future, there's a lot of technological advances, but there's also a lot of issues as well along with that.
Well, it's kind of one of those, like from Fallout. War never changes. It's like we can sit here and we can advance as a society to the level we have magic cats that can tell if people are lying, and people can evolve to where some have horns, some have wings, but when it really comes down to it, they're still fighting over the same garbage that we've been fighting over for about 100-something years. Over 100-something, hundreds of years.
But with that honest depiction of the future, there's also an optimistic approach to it. Yeah, people are going to want to bring people into this world, you know? Like, so there's like a family-oriented type of situation going on here within the storyline, but also the fact that there is such craziness that's going on. You know, I just love the fact that there is this dichotomy between, it's terrible, but people still embrace it. And
that's
there's an optimism.
That's exactly what we do with now, though. Is that, you know, you look at any war-torn region throughout history, people are still having children. There is no conflict that's great enough to make people not want to continue their family line, to continue a species, to have a child, to nurture, to love, to grow.
Well, it's the will to exist. Yeah. Not just live, but the will to exist at that point in time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so moving on, we're going to go to issue number 2 of this trade. We're introduced to the Stalk is one of the first important introductions in this one. She is another bounty hunter that has been hired, and she reminds me a lot of an ex-girlfriend.
All right, so first of all, to preface before Mike begins talking about this ex-girlfriend,
I was just going to describe the Stalk.
She has no arms.
Yes.
Long, what I call mermaid hair, to where the hair extends below the breasticle region, covering it up like a mermaid. But she's got about 8 eyes, and from the first panel, a very large dress-looking thing underneath it, kind of being mysterious and keeping it very bride-looking.
She also takes half. Everybody, she also takes half. And no, it's a scary creature, honest to God.
She immediately introduces the fact that she's there to kill Marco and Alana, take the baby, which doesn't sit well with Marco, so he moves forward, and she stabs him through his shoulder, chest region with her giant barbed tongue.
Yes.
And then it is revealed that underneath her dress are 8 horrific spider legs.
White spider, dude.
Did we get into the fact that Marco did not want to draw a sword, or did not? Like, prior, I think, in the comic, like, he did not want to dive into his past history.
He's given up his warlike ways, because he was a soldier. He's given up his warlike ways to raise a family. That was a vow he made. So you're right. Yeah,
I'm a father, not a soldier.
Yes. Yes. So that's very important. So he's not trying to fight this what he thinks is a creature at the moment. Maybe that wasn't the best call. But what's great is next we get to see...
Interrupting, do they explain why that's the case?
I've continued reading this one. We get more of his backstory over the course of the entire comic. So it's not just in this trade, we're going to find out. You have to read volumes through 6, and then the 7th volume is currently out in issues right now.
But it's such an enjoyable part of seeing a character build in that he's trying to abandon this part of himself. And knowing how contagious it is, and knowing how much, like, the bloodshed that may have, you know, had over the years of this war, and not trying to, and knowing how impressionable that he is towards his children, like, to not want to have that, and even the point of face of danger, to know, like, this is such a huge thing, can I solve this with just my words? I mean, that's such a beautiful thing to sacrifice, knowing that you can just slay something in front of him.
Yeah.
Taking the more peaceful option.
Absolutely.
So we're then introduced to Alana's strength, because she knows that the Stalk has been assigned to kill the parents and take the baby. So she is threatening to kill her own child, which would be, in her eyes, a better death than anything that could happen, giving the child over.
And we're talking panel-wise, cold steel to the child's forehead.
Yeah, it's
as
a
the gun
pretty
is charging.
It's a pretty tough
Like,
panel.
it's-
To the point where a trained and experienced bounty hunter says, "Damn, bitch." She's not messing around, and the stalk can really see the determination in the eye. The stalk is scared off by a bunch
Rustling.
of glowing eyes in the woods. We find out that there are things on this planet called the Horrors, which nobody quite has described them yet, but everybody's pretty much terrified of them. So the moment they show up, the stalk just says, "Screw it, you're better off killing the child than letting the Horrors get him."
Even the stalk, even she is just frightened by the idea of what could be of the Horrors.
And then we are introduced to the Horrors.
The Horrors turn out to be the ghosts of people that have died on landfall. They're just, it's a bunch of kids that unfortunately have died in combat.
And unfortunately wearing Hot Topic clothing while they died in combat.
It was the saddest thing out of this whole comic. Let's be honest.
It's hard to.
Those $80 baggy pants.
I was gonna say well, first of all, it proves one thing. No matter what time we are in, no matter what galaxy, what universe we're in at that point in time, teenagers are still going to inappropriately wear beanies.
All day.
Summertime, wear a beanie with a t-shirt with a heart with flames on it.
I spit at the comic and I had to dry it off afterwards. It was disgusting.
Just reminded you of childhood. So we're introduced to Isabel, who is a floating apparition of a teenage girl who does not have legs. And not only does she not have legs,
she really doesn't
her
have hips.
intestines are hanging out from below her t-shirt at her waistline.
A little bit
kind
of
of a person.
viscera.
We find out that her death was because she had the misfortune of stepping on a landmine. And now because of the way this planet works,
Thanks, LBJ.
she is a ghost who comes out. Great LBJ reference.
It's garbage.
She's a ghost that comes out only at night on this planet, but she is bored to tears. And she's looking for some adventure, and she sees two people that could use her help, and especially this child who is caught in the middle of all this nonsense. So she,
Well, they need a babysitter.
I think they need a little bit more than a babysitter at the moment.
Well, right now they need a babysitter, so why not hire some?
It's on the
She's
list. but
always
it's
going to be
very-
there.
It's
You
at
don't
night.
have to pay her.
So what you're saying, you're advocating that new parents should murder teenage girls so that they can have ghost babysitters.
First of all, if in your world that works that way, yeah, go for
Fine.
it. It's a cost-effective way.
we
you
are-
just got to lose part of your
Okay,
soul.
fine. New parents on the planet Cleve
We're on the brink
should
of another recession.
murder
let's
a
be
teenage
honest.
girl to have a live-in babysitter.
Graphically, horribly murder a teenage girl to have a good babysitter.
But let's be fair though. She's a pretty awesome babysitter.
She is.
She
She does get along with Hazel pretty well.
She's good. She reads social cues pretty well. She can teach her daughter about death pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's a pretty solid.
Because that's the
She can
first thing
teach
you
her
need to
about
learn.
the
'cause she's dead
gastrointestinal
as
system
shit.
very easily.
That's what works.
Okay, so now we see Prince Robot is interrogating another prisoner at the prison that Alana had worked at and Marco was a prisoner at. So we're introduced to the fact that Marco was a soldier who has been taken to a POW camp, and Alana was a soldier who was guarding these prisoners. So they met in that realm. So Prince Robot is interrogating this guy, who then references a battle where a lot of robots were killed. And we're introduced to Prince Robot's brutality here, because it is now not even about the mission. It's not about the interrogation. It's just about killing this man who has insulted him.
Yes, I mean, he even talks about how it's just, remember this specific battle at Threshold. And he's sitting there, he's like, yeah, a lot of good men died that day. It's like, what does this have to do with anything we're doing? It's like, oh, this has nothing to do with that. We're burying a lot of you guys. And then from there, just, nope, none of it. Flip the table.
Yeah.
Just done.
Yeah.
Just punching, throwing, beating up, fart, knuckling, everything.
Yeah.
Did it feel like kind of set up though? Like, I mean, maybe it wasn't a very necessary part of the comic, but I mean, I anticipate like as soon as there's a table in a comic, this shit's about to be flipped over. And
Well,
Well,
if you're
it needs to be
interrogating
there.
anyone, the table's
Yeah.
going to get flipped, or at least slammed on.
We need to find out exactly how the politics work. We need to find out what his motive
good
is. 'Cause
tool.
Even when the winged soldier that is accompanying him steps into the room, normally you watch the cop procedural and another officer comes into the room to stop the violence. And she goes in to say something and while his gun is in this guy's face, he says, "I'm finishing my interrogation," and then proceeds to off-panel kill this guy. So he is above the standard.
You're also forgetting, "Now be a deer and fuck the fuck off."
Yeah. That's he has a way with words. Prince Robot the Fourth has a way with words.
Oh God, he's a poet.
Okay, so now we've determined that to heal Marco, we need to get him to a place with snow so they can do a healing spell.
Yes.
So Isabel is going to help them after she is allowed to bond to the baby.
Yes.
So when she can bond to Hazel, she now can leave the planet, and that's what she really wants to do. So now we get this babysitter thing we've been talking about.
Right.
This built-in babysitter.
Yep.
And
she pretty much has her own built-in imaginary friend from the beginning.
And what I really like is the point is not the scary ghost girl is going to hang out with the aliens. The point that is made the entire time is Alana. She's worried about who do you let into your new family? Who do you trust? Which is a thing that a lot of new parents have to deal with, is who do you trust letting into your new family? So she's concerned about this fact, but ends up trusting her and allowing Isabel to join and be part of the family.
I enjoyed that it was this force that was supposed to be dangerous introduced, like, you know.
Well, she is one of the horrors.
Yeah, but I mean, even the horror is scaring the stalk. This was supposed to be a force supposed to eradicate your family, and instead, it really shows like the questionability of like just this entire universe, like how much. Like, maybe these people are actually going to be there for us, you know? It really showed how much they question, you know, this constant concern for who's going to be there for us, who's not.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a village.
I'm going to let you sit in that.
I am.
You dumpster child.
So moving on from... So now we get the Will and the stalker on a phone call together. We find out that they are ex-lovers. We don't know much from this phone call other than that he wants nothing to do with her.
Yes.
We know that much.
I'm out. And plus, she's currently trying to escape the planet right now. It's where she has traveled on, trying to get off of it, calling him up. And while that's happening, we learn about them, and then we go back to this couple trying to find Snow.
Yeah, and in the last panel, we have a semi-conscious Marco mumbling in his death throes, where he basically mentions his bride, Gwendolyn. Not Alana, Gwendolyn. So, needless to say, Alana's not happy.
No, not at all.
You'd never mention an ex.
The only thing worse than mentioning an ex in a sexist situation...
Mentioning it on your deathbed.
Mentioning on your deathbed, because then you won't even get answers if they die.
Yeah.
So then the incentive is to keep them alive so you can kill them afterwards after they're done explaining.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was brought up in like mid-dream psychosis,
it's like a hallucination from the trauma.
To be fair, like I'm not a huge dream analysis kind of person. Like I just don't really sink into that as much.
You don't buy into that one.
Yeah, I don't believe in a literal sense that people take it. It could trigger like maybe there's some needs or wants within the person. Yeah, maybe maybe you're tapping into the subconscious, the unconscious. I've never been subscribed to that personally and professionally. And with Marco, like I just don't think it's just somebody revisiting like this unfinished business.
Oh, it's definitely not for him, but it's a raw subject when you are putting yourself and your child in danger and your husband is saying another woman's name. I can imagine her
she'd
being
be pissed.
Yeah.
Oh,
a little bit.
Rachel would stab me. It would be over. Are you kidding me? No.
We would sing songs at your funeral.
Yeah, nah,
nothing but sea shanties.
So we get to issue 4 of this particular arc, and all I'm going to say is we're introduced to a planet called Sextillion, which is basically the red light district in planet form, and it is horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. The Will has decided he's going to go there, and he's going to spend all of his hard-earned money before he goes on this bounty here.
As you should.
He also knows that...
I mean, he gets a per diem.
Well, he knows if the stalk is on the case... She's going to beat him to it. He knows how good she is. He doesn't like her, but he knows that she's skilled. So he's going to go to this whorehouse planet and just enjoy himself until the card stops working.
Yep.
So we are introduced to...
there's just winged people coitusing all over the place, flying...
Long legs with like no torso.
Numbers getting involved, and there's more arms than Hindu deities.
Everyone's an object.
Lots of wangs.
Everyone's an object.
It's aggressive, and he is
very
introduced,
sexually aggressive.
Yeah, he meets with, for lack of a better term, a pimp.
I'd say pimp, possibly a handler,
who introduces him to a 6-year-old.
This is the part I wanted to talk about.
This part hurts.
Yeah?
This part really hurts.
We'll delve more into the will and his will later.
Ugh.
But leave me alone.
Boo!
But yes, we don't see her yet. But it's basically this planet. They do in fact have children on this sex planet.
There's a particularly horrifying phrase. Davis, can you read it for us?
You decent in there, slave girl? Anything but, master. I taught her to say that. Anyway, have fun.
I read that with what's his face from BoJack Horseman's voice.
Will Arnett.
I read that with a Will Arnett voice of like, I taught her to say that. Like it was just a damaging thing.
What's this? But I mean,
it's not like you knew that this universe was any more corrupt earlier. I mean,
It
like,
just further drives
about
home how horrific this future,
Right.
that the future is not better, Jetson style, that it's actually, they still have the same horrific problems that we do.
They talked about rape camps earlier. You
Yeah,
know, that
it's
really shattered any sort of Jetsonian vision of the future. Is when you talk about rape camps like it's this casual thing you went to Walgreens.
Can we coin the term Jetsonian? Is that...
Love that.
Can we...
Yeah.
So,
No
not
one's
happy.
hovering, everyone's dying.
Here's
okay?
where
That's
we
how it
learn.
works.
Here's where we learn the. No one's hovering and everyone's dying. That's going to be the tagline for this podcast, folks. Thanks, Donny.
Yeah, I'm a damaged person.
So we find that the will has a moral code, and it obviously involves children. He immediately kills the pimp, and he's going to
We're talking he smashes his head
Yeah.
in between his hands like the Hulk clapping someone to death.
it's insane. He's going to try to take this girl off the planet. At this point is what he decides.
Yes.
Now we go back to Alana and Marco. They have managed to get him to snow. They have healed him. And immediately, Alana's been pissed the entire time about this Gwendolyn thing. But the moment he comes to, she is nothing but ecstatic that her love is alive and well. And that's the important point there, is that no matter what happens, she's still down for him. She's still
The forgiveness.
There's that immediate forgiveness. She still wants explanations, and they do.
Ex-fiance.
Yeah, well,
So technically,
yeah.
still fiance.
Yeah, it gets a little muddy. Not only that, but their wedding rings that he has given to himself and Alana are the wedding rings that he had for his ex. But hey, we're going utilitarian on this.
That's a good point.
They are translator rings. They translate the language. So really, it's a fiscally they're already purchased. They're already purchased. We need translation.
It's a Kenner move, but you gotta respect it for what it is.
It is.
You gotta do what you gotta do. There's some meaning behind it. It was probably a beautiful ring.
It's a Kenner move, folks.
It's a Kenner move.
So, as they're making up, a ship of winged soldiers shows up. What are we going to do? And this is where Marco decides that his family is worth breaking that vow of peace, and he takes out his sword to get ready to fight.
Now, if you look at his sword itself, he has it chained into the scabbard.
Yeah.
So he has to physically break this chain
Shatink.
to unsheathe his weapon.
And then when it's out, it glows blue, which is really cool.
But it's not Hobbit style.
Yeah. So we get to Chapter 5, and Landfall's High Command, the Wing High Command, has told these winged soldiers a bunch of lies to just get them to kill Alana, Marco, and now the baby. They don't even care about that. They want everybody dead. Alana gets shot in the shoulder, and Marco becomes a whirlwind of violence.
Yes.
Just this brutality in motion. The way the artist paints these scenes is beautiful. He hasn't killed anybody, but he's causing a whole lot of damage.
Wolverine Berserker Barrage.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then we get to a point where he's about to take it too far, which is when Alana steps in, knowing what's best for him, and stops him from killing anyone. Shoots the sword out of his hands.
VNNNAX. Thanks.
It's an energy weapon, so
You know what they put out those letters. That means
It's Vanax.
it's calm down.
We then move over to Prince Robot, and Prince Robot finds out that he and his wife are now pregnant. He has a brand new reason to go home, but now it's further cemented. He's not allowed to go home to his child and his pregnant wife until he has completed his mission.
Very much Avatar The Last Airbender. TV show, not the horrible movie.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Zuko style.
Yes.
He can't go back home until...
He's kind of Prince Zuko here.
Exactly. He's not necessarily banished.
Foreshadowing, he's going to be much more Prince Zuko if you read later trades.
Ooh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, these are on a bunch of iPhone 7s. This is a big deal. These not.
What are you talking
Why are we talking about the iPhone 7 right now?
I just heard a lot of
They
it.
don't need a headphone jack. You don't need it.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prince Robot finds that he's pregnant, can't go home. And the Will is trying to take this slave girl off the planet and finds out that he can't, that she has a failsafe built into her by the planet that will not allow her to leave without dying.
Yes.
So he has to accept his defeat. He has just to eat his defeat. And it's a very painful moment for him. And then we move on over back to Prince Robot, who comes upon the injured soldiers. And he finds the stalk has also found them. He sees a stalk over them. And he notices that the stalk has a weapon on her. So immediately, all he can think about is his child. His face lights up with a little rattle. And he immediately thinks to protect himself for his child's sake. And he just blasts the stalk through the chest.
Shot straight through the chest.
Big,
Straight
giant,
to the chest.
gaping hole. Now, clearly, this is going to set some people at odds.
Yes. I want to go back and talk about the Will. Loving this guy's character completely. The whole him saving this girl, great subplot to have as far as keeping this character, who is a mercenary, human. And plus, out of everyone that we've dealt with, he is the most humanoid human. He doesn't have horns.
No extra limbs.
Yeah.
He's not a weird color.
He's not a spider person.
Put that together, yeah.
He doesn't have a robot head. He is literally the most human-looking
Except for him
human.
and now the slave girl. They're the most human-looking characters.
Yes.
One of the things that I loved watching the Will being introduced as this great character in contrast to the goodness, which is, you know, Marco and Alana, and of course Hazel, and some of these other characters that kind of come into play, and with some of the evil that kind of comes along. Him being introduced as a great character, if anything, has a lot of stock increase just through the fact that, you know, he's going to come to the rescue of this little girl. Like, he has no benefit whatsoever, but he's going to do it anyway because this is just wrong. It's part of the universe that is wrong to him. So I love watching his character develop as this show progresses from being this bloodthirsty mercenary to being, there's some moral internal compass there.
We go mercenary to depraved human because he went and spent all his money at a sex planet, but then immediately we find out where his human line is.
If we're going to talk character alignment chart here, neutral good.
Yeah.
He's a mercenary, he does laws and whatnot, but he's just a good person.
Yeah. Speaking of the Will, now we have a problem because Prince Robot has just killed his complicated ex-lover, the Stalk. If anybody's seen Taken with Liam Neeson, there's this great moment where the Will and the Stalk were on the phone while she is killed. So Prince Robot picks up the phone, and the Will just basically declares to him, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
So this really kind of complicates the situation for the Will. Now it's not about the mission. Now it's about killing the prince, who is on the same mission that he initially was taking. So it kind of complicates it from there. So this is his kind of declaration into how he's going to proceed in this revenge aspect. We get Alana, Marco, Isabel, and Hazel have now found their way to the rocket ship forest. And they stumble upon what basically looks like a tree in the shape of a rocket.
With a giant Celtic knot in front.
I wish rockets grew out of the ground, because I'd be going to space constantly. That sounds awesome.
What was the quote that they used describing the rocket from the narrator's standpoint? Because it's predominantly narrated by Hazel, at least in this particular issue. Maybe a little bit later on. Could you read that for us, Davis?
Most of my childhood was spent clinging to the feathers of a dulled arrow blindly fired across a starless night.
And they'll throw that in between a lot of the just interjections about, you douche. They're very colorful with their language and very flexible with regards to what they use.
There's a lot of blue humor, and then to get this kind of lofty thought out of Hazel from her future narration is really nice.
Yeah.
So they get to the rocket, they get on the rocket, and they're going to leave. So we're referenced to this book that Alana has read.
It's a sexy novel.
Yeah, it's a romance novel, and I guess from what we understand, it's what started the relationship between Marco and Alana. So they have decided they want to take Hazel to meet the author. That's their thing. That Alana even calls him the smartest man in the universe. This is one hell of a romance novel if Alana really loves it that much. So they're on their way. But Prince Robot knows about this book, so he's also had the same idea. So these two are going to come to a head. But now we get a great introduction of two horned soldiers teleporting themselves into the vessel.
In battle armor.
Yeah, and they just start blindly attacking Marco, who starts yelling in his native language to stop. This is my wife, this is my child. And the two soldiers immediately stop and take off their helmets. And Hazel says a great line. And that's how Grandma and Grandpa came to live with us.
Exactly. The last time, which by the way, their language definitely looks like a combination of Latin and Spanish.
Yeah, it's a little, it's kind of cool.
Cutio vere we?
Yeah, the last panel is us being introduced to these grandparents. So even on the last page of this trade, it's like, hey, you're going to want to read the next one.
You have to make it. You have to make it so they
Yeah.
want to read the next one. You can't just end it on like, and then things turned out happily ever after, because then why would you leave that as a standalone?
There's
Exactly.
a cliffhanger, but there's also some resolution too. I mean, there's some uncertainty with regards to.
One thing I like about this series and is just that every time you have a question, they always answer the question, but they always pose a brand new one too. So you do get all the resolution you crave while getting more desire to move forward by adding new points to it. Now, I want to talk about some of the big themes of this book. One theme I like is to me, it appeared to be a metaphor between interplanetary war and the perils of nurturing a family.
Yeah.
How dangerous and scary and terrifying raising a family can be through the lens of this big war that they have. Because through Hazel's narration, you get these parallels of deciding who you let in your life. She's describing Isabel, the babysitter, but she's also describing these assassins that are after them. But also, any new parent with a brand new child, the first time you're going to hire a babysitter probably feels like hiring an assassin. You have no idea who this human is.
Or hiring a completely just eviscerated floating ghost girl.
Yeah, I would, because she can't touch physically, so it's
Yeah,
I'm
exactly,
okay with that.
exactly.
There's such an uncertainty though, like on so many levels from start to finish, like each and every chapter. Every time, like you didn't know what they're about to engage with. Like you didn't know
Right.
what was whether it be babysitters or whether it be who are these people that are entering our ship.
Whether it's on a family level, whether it's on a war level, no matter what it is, every moment there's some uncertainty, which is nurturing a family. There's always that terrifying uncertainty, which I really thought was cool. Another thing I really liked was that love and family is the driver for literally every character in the story, regardless of background. You have Alana and Marco who are trying to raise their family. You have Isabel who's trying to find a new family and a new purpose. You have Prince Robot who's driven by his wife and his child.
Yeah, and
you
his want to have a family.
Yeah, you have the Will who is driven by the death of his ex that he had problems with but still loved, and this new slave girl who's clearly in a world of trouble. Everybody, all the main players in this, no matter what their circumstances are, everybody is being driven by this love, this family, this desire to connect and protect
Have someone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
And then it kind of parallels, you can't fight a war with yourself.
Who the shit outsources war? I mean,
mean,
we haven't
it-
gotten to that point yet, but
It's-
Oh yeah, that's right,
I
we
w-
do. But I'm crashed. But still, like the fact that two areas could come to agreements with that, I think, is another huge point in how much.
It's almost like a warning for the future-ish, like,
Yeah.
of how bad we can get, how bad our nature is.
If there's anything like I've come across out of this entire publication, it's gotta be just the fact that the Jetsons didn't have to deal with rape camps, okay? They didn't, ever, okay? And even then, people are still wanting to start families, like, in this type of environment, in this universe. You know, I know that sounds ridiculous, but...
Oh, it doesn't sound ridiculous at all. I mean, if you look back at the 1960s, 1970s, the scope of the future was it was Jetsonian. I love that word. We're totally coining it. It was Jetsonian. It's like everything is awesome. It's fine. When you go to work, all you do is press a single button all day long, and your car turns into your briefcase, and you can be fine. That's all good.
And in reality, you're going to have children in an auto shop.
Yes.
That's happening.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very heavy book. They do have a lot of fun fighting and banter, but they do deal with some really heavy issues. So it kind of hits you on all those levels. The pacing of the story I thought was great. It's a very engaging pacing.
Yes.
It always gives you a taste, but it never feeds you. You're never full. It's always like, hey, here's a brand new character, and then we're immediately pulling away. So it always kind of gives you a little bit of something. And especially jumping between the characters, you get a lot of tidbits here and there, but never does the whole thing. And like I said earlier, it always adds new questions when answering old ones. So it always keeps you wanting to read more. I'm hesitant to say cliffhanger at the end of it, because it's
Right.
not always a cliffhanger at the end of the issue, but it's
It's an ellipsis.
yeah, there's still more information that you want to wait for.
Absolutely.
Was there any other points of the pacing or how the story was told that you really want to bring up?
The one thing that you pointed out to me before we started reading this was that it's not done by actual books. It's by chapters.
Yeah.
It's where the first one, Oh, that one took a minute to get through. That one definitely took a minute to get through. But everything after that, it's just kind of a plot by plot by plot, point by point.
Yeah,
by
the
point,
density,
and it works.
the density varies of the issue, which is really cool. Now, speaking on the art, this is a podcast, so you can't really see the book. Hopefully, you have a copy of your own. The art is very character focused.
Lovely.
Which is a really cool detail. The backgrounds are very muted. They're there, but they don't jump out. The eye is immediately drawn to the people and their interaction, and that's the important point of it.
The varying shades they have in some things. Like the first page right off the bat, Alana just has this wonderful blue-green with a little hint of yellow thrown in there. And it's not exactly tie-dye, but it's like someone just threw a bunch of watercolors, just blended it all, or it kind of blended one area, but kept the light shining from one thing, all while having the black juxtaposed as the actual foundation and outline of the hair.
They're very particular with the color choices that they have throughout this entire publication. You know, in certain areas where there's brightness, they choose it for a reason. I mean, even with the horrors, they chose that color, in my opinion, for a reason, just showing like, no, maybe there's something more to this, you know, the contrast to it.
It wasn't red eyes in the forest. It's kind of a pinkish hue. There's some approachability to it. It's not just horrifying and terrifying.
Well, exactly. Well, you see the eyes in the background.
Yeah, and
are red,
you're immediately
so
like scary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And plus, they're dealing with them at nighttime. So what's a better reverse color? Making red, bright red off of this kind of dark blue background.
Yeah.
So the spider character earlier is called the Stalk, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, really quick, I have not read this, but my knee jerk is the Stalk is clearly very informed. Why was she so terrified of the horrors? Was she not aware of how actually passive and nice these people were, or she knows something the audience doesn't?
From what I've gathered from the story, from what they tell you, is that as a way to protect the planet, these ghosts project these horrible images on people that are going in places they shouldn't be or doing things they shouldn't do. So you might see somebody being eviscerated by a giant, terrifying monster. There's no monster and there's no person being eviscerated.
There's just a projection that's used for their own safety or to protect an area.
So everybody's terrified of them, but the horrors see a family in need and don't present themselves as horrors to them.
Right.
Now, let's close out the show by doing our usual ratings.
Yes.
We're going to have a 3-tiered rating system. There's going to be buy. This book is an absolute must-have. You want it in your hands, you want it in your library, you want to read it again, you want to give it to other people, you want to lend it out. This is one you have to have. Borrow, which is if your friend has it, if the library has it, definitely check it out, but you don't need to rush out and purchase this one. It's not an absolute necessity to have in your collection. And then pass. This one either was nothing to write home about and not a big deal, or this one was terrible. Do not waste your time, do not waste your money, don't go anywhere near this. So let's start with Davis. How do you feel about this book?
This one for me, definitely a buy.
Yeah.
I will not be buying it. I will be borrowing your copies from then on. But if I did not have someone that had readily available to borrow them from, and I don't know, will they get a collected omnibus out there as far as, because it's still ongoing right now. So as soon as they get I think they might be doing 10 trades.
Yeah.
However long, that coffee table book style, yeah, definitely going to be getting that. Buy. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Star Wars and Romeo and Juliet. People with horns, and there's a brothel planet.
Yeah.
You just can't go wrong.
How do you feel about it, Donnie? Buy, borrow, pass.
I'm going to say buy, and the reason why, for me, is that it's something that I feel like you can't really usually engage with most other types of comics. I think, like you said, you know, we talked about the theme of like family orientation, and God, that's such a goofy cliche thing for me to bring up as a marriage and family therapist, but that is an attractive point of this type of comic. And you know, it's just, I just think you're going to get out of anywhere else. You know, it's just a very enjoyable, engaging story. It's well put together. The art is beautiful. I would say buy. Yeah. Even though Mike may already have, you know, he's going to buy it all anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all of you. And I have already put my money where my mouth is, so you people know. I have bought every trade paperback of this that has come out, and I've now started reading it monthly. That's how much I loved this story. It was recommended to me by one of the employees at our local comic shop.
Crescent City Comics.
Yes, Crescent City Comics. Thank you, guys.
Calhoun Street, right, and Ferret Street, 2 convenient locations.
I picked it up and immediately fell in love with it, and I've been hounding after this book. It tells a story that's not being told right now in a way that's not being done, about characters that aren't. Everything about it is just not your standard comic book. You know, when you think comic book and you think superheroes, you think big busty action and all kinds of... No, that's not what this book is. It does everything that's not out there normally, and every one I've read has been great. Like, I have not enjoyed any issue, any book. There's always been at least a great time, if not some of the best times I've had reading comics. Buy it immediately, read it, give it to people who don't read comics, and have them try it out.
Because, like me.
Yeah, like Donnie, because it's going to cross bridges that people who don't read comics are going to be able to easily follow and enjoy.
Especially if they're family and marriage counselors.
What was that last rating system? Was it buy, borrow, and what?
Pass.
Why don't you go with boo? Like, boo! Like, that'd be
Just
a nice
so it's all B's?
That'd be a nice thing to just boo a comic. Like...
So do we know if Fiona Staples is related to Vince Staples?
Okay, we're going to wrap this up,
All
folks,
right, yeah, this is
before these two idiots get off the rails. Davis, you want to tell them where they can find us?
Yes. All right. If you guys want to email us, you can definitely get at us at jacksoftradespodcast@gmail.com. That's short for googlemail.com. Our password is... Nope, not doing that one. You can also get us on Facebook.
So you're not giving the password to jackass.
That was half the...
I think he was making two.
That was intentional.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to be humorous.
I was trying to be
It
humorous.
sucked, God.
You
Fine,
joke.
fine. If you guys want to email us, you can get us at jacksofttradespodcast@gmail.com, facebook.com/jackstradespod, Twitter @jackstradespod, and soon to be a website that we'll let you guys know about once we get everything up and rolling on that thing.
jacksoftradespodcast.com.
Yeah, that's
You got to finish the story.
I know.
The way that you said
don't- I
that,
don't want it
just
to end.
There's
hate
just
you.
no
I
finish
don't want
in
it to
him.
end.
It's got tons of start and no finish.
We're
You
not.
want to do it one more time, or y'all want to...
No, let's just keep it the way it is.
It's like
Damaged souls.
It's fun. Okay, everyone. Thank you for listening to our inaugural episode. We'll be back next month with a brand new trade, and we'll let you know what that one's going to be. I'm Mike.
I'm Davis.
I'm Donnie.
And this was Jacks of Trades. Thank you, guys.
Adios.
This week's episode of Jacks of Trades is brought to you by your hosts, Mike Durette and Davis Callais, with special guest Donny Songy. Recording was done by Greg Tilton of In Depth Media in New Orleans, Louisiana. Editing by Daniel Desimone. Special thanks to Robert Krieger for his contributions to the show. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Reach out to us at jacksofttradespodcast@gmail.com and find us online at www.jacksofttradespodcast.com.
Okay, guys, we're announcing it now. We are going to create our own indie comic called Putin Boots, which is going to be Vladimir Putin going on adventures in his little boots.
I still think it should be... No, it's called Putin Boots, and it's Vladimir Putin and Antonio Banderas rolling across the countryside saving people.